We're starting.
Almost. All right. Hey, welcome. Good morning. It is good to be with you. Excuse me. Um, if you've been here, well, first of all, I'm JT. I'm the pastor of student ministries and outreach. If you have been here in January, we've been looking at our ministry objectives each week. And today we get to look at the objective of loving neighbors and thinking about outreach. I actually am not going to say much. I, as pastor of outreach, work closely with Rachel Oopman as we think about outreach and how we do that and what we are doing. And she has a plethora of experience and expertise, and she is going to lead our session today. So without further ado, please welcome Rachel.
Thanks, JT. All right, make sure I'm on here too. Can you all hear me okay? All right, great. Good. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to facilitate the conversation this morning about outreach. And we'll follow the same pattern that's happened the last several weeks as we've talked through the different ministry objectives. Give a few thoughts just to open us up and kind of warm up our minds and hearts to what we're talking about. And then we have 4 brave souls who've agreed to come and share a little bit of their experience and involvement right now in local outreach. So we'll do that. And then there'll be some group conversation time and some prayer at the end. So I'm glad to be able to start with this today. And I have a little clicker, which we don't usually do for sermons. So let's find out if it works. Hey, look at that, it works. Okay, so like JT said, today we're talking about the ministry objective that is entitled Loving Neighbors. We have the cute little houses with heart lollipops around the path. I don't know. Anyway, here's what it actually says, like the words, because I'm a words person, so I'd like to see the words here. It says, loving neighbors, this is our ministry objective, one of the ones that we committed to for this academic year, to deepen our heart for and commitment to local outreach that is holistic and relational, seeking the good of our neighbors in faithfulness to Christ. So I want to just say a few things about what we mean by these words, because words are great, but sometimes they need context too, and we need to kind of flesh them out. So local outreach is kind of hidden there in the middle, and that's maybe a substitute for loving neighbors or a parallel phrase that we could draw on here. But what do we mean by local outreach? When I'm thinking about local outreach, I'm thinking about the fact that we get to join in God's mission. We get to join in God's mission. He's on a mission. He's out there active right now, this very minute, this very hour, in our neighborhood and in our city, and that's what we're thinking about. God is on the move, and we have the privilege and the opportunity to join him in what he's doing. As the creator, God's original design and plan was for a partnership with humans. He created humans and said, I want you to enjoy this good creation I've given you, and I want you to rule and reign and steward this good creation. Continue this creative project with me for what I've designed for our world together, and enjoy my love. Let's do this together in community. And of course, we know that the first humans and all of us afterwards have chosen instead to rule on our own terms and in our own way and reject God's plan in many ways. But he continues to offer us restored relationship in Jesus. That's what we believe here as people who follow Jesus. And his plan is ultimately unchanged. God's way more patient and persistent than me. He's like, give me your worst. I don't care. I still want to be in partnership with you. I still want to be in relationship with you. I still want to collaborate with you for the good of our world. No matter what you got, I'm still in it with you. So through Jesus, we're offered restored relationship and the continuation of that plan that God, in partnership with humans, he wants us to share his love and to join in his work. Now to renew and restore his creation, which has been broken by our own choices and by the existence of evil in our world. So that's why the word relational is in there too. It's just one of the ways God works. Again, I'm can be a little bullheaded sometimes, and so I'm like, what in the world? Like, just give it up. These people are too broken. They're too stubborn. They're too difficult. It would just be easier if you did it. And God's like, nope. I have been committed since the beginning to do it in partnership with humans, and that's how it's going to happen. So, did God intervene in Jesus? Yes. And then he says, guess what? We're on a project together, folks, to restore and renew the whole creation, and I want to do it with you. I want to do it together. Despite the messiness, that's God's way of working. Yes, he uses miracles, he speaks through donkeys, he delivers messages through angels, but most of the time, he chooses to wait and do it in relationship and cooperation with humans who are in relationship with one another. Not efficient, that's what I would say. Not efficient, but it's God's way. It's better. So, local outreach, we mean joining God's mission. God's mission is inherently relational because God is inherently relational. God's mission is also holistic. His redemption plan includes inviting all people to consider loving relationship with him, and it also involves joining the expression of God's rule and reign through restoring all things in the created order as they were meant to be. Reflections of the abundant, creative, generous love that God longs to share with us. I love Colossians 1 in 19 and 20, where it's talking about the supremacy of Jesus over and above all things. It says, for God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in Christ, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, making peace through his blood shed on the cross. So we see this idea of this holistic. God's desire is for relationship with all humans, but his desire is also to see his entire created order, the whole cosmos, put back into the way, the goodness and abundance that it originally was designed for. Okay, so I have one scripture to share with you, and then we'll bring up our panel. One place where we can see this kind of divine-human partnership and this holistic mission that God's on together comes from this place that we see recorded in Luke 4, where at the start of Jesus' ministry, he made a really bold proclamation. He sat down in the synagogue in a moment of it's like his sermon, right? He's preaching. And he says, okay, hand me the scroll that has Isaiah on it, because they didn't have like books, they had scrolls, right? He says, give me the book with Isaiah. Give me the scroll with Isaiah. And he whips it out and he starts reading. And he says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. So this was a really well-known passage. And it was the equivalent of him saying, that's me. I'm it. I'm the Messiah. I'm the one who's come to inaugurate, to start God's rescue plan, which includes the release of captivity, the freedom for the prisoner, sight for the blind, restoration of all things, and it starts here and now. And Jesus said, today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. That, friends, is a holistic mission. And even better if we go down another layer, because I really like this kind of stuff, if we go down another layer to that passage that he's quoting from Isaiah, I mean, Luke only gives us like this much, but I think Jesus probably read a whole bunch more from that passage, because if you read like even just a few verses further on than what Luke quotes, he actually refers to the people that Jesus would heal. So the Messiah is going to proclaim good news for the poor, freedom for the prisoners, sight for the blind, and freedom for the oppressed. It also talks about him giving comfort to those who mourn and joy to those who are bereaved. But then it says that the Messiah would also give a new identity and purpose to the people he rescues. So in Isaiah 61:4, it says that these freed, healed, comforted people were going to become the people who rebuild ancient ruins, who restore places long devastated. They would be called priests and ministers of God. In other words, friends, Jesus was and is still now about the business of healing, freeing, and redeeming people who turn to him. And he calls his people to join his work of cosmic redemption, to become rebuilders, restorers, priests, ministers, a showcase, a display, a planting, as it says in Isaiah, a display for his glory that others would see and go, ooh, there's something different going on here. I see the breaking in of something new, this restoration. And that's what local outreach is about, is that we get to join God's mission. He has not given up on this world. He's in the process of restoring and redeeming, and he says, I want you. I want you to join me. Let's do this together. Let's do this together. God's still on a mission today. He's still on a mission to invite all people into relationship with himself and to restore all things, to undo all the places of brokenness and sin and rebellion. And he still wants our partnership. So we do this with our whole lives. We do this and we join God's mission by telling others about God and how he's in the process of restoring us, by sharing our own experience and story with God, and by joining in God's work to restore and heal all the broken places in our world. That's kind of a really big mission. So when we talk about local outreach, I'm kind of talking about all of it. That's why I care about this, because it's kind of the whole thing. Okay? We're talking about being those people who join God on his mission in the world. But the good news is we're not alone. It's God's mission, and God's already out there active. We just look for where he's at and join him. So while it might sound really big, and for some people that might sound really daunting, actually it's really freeing, because God's the one out there on a mission. You just have to join him. And you join him right where you are, wherever he's planted you. What school, what workplace, what home, what neighborhood, what street, what friends, what sports team, whatever it looks like, the place where you are, that's where God's at work. And he's at work today, and he says, hey, you, join me right where I put you, right where I put you. So it means that no matter your age, your circumstances of life, your skills, your gifts, you have something to contribute. So we're going to hear from 4 folks today in City Church who are actively part of joining God's mission in their own unique way, in their own unique spot in the world. And I hope that it will give you ideas, maybe spark something for you like, oh, I could do that. Or I hadn't thought of that. Or maybe I'm actually already doing this and I don't realize it. But when you see that actually you're walking in partnership with God, it can give you new energy and strength for what it is that God's called you to. So before we have them come up, I just want to remind you that City Church is already active in this area. There's 3 different ways that City Church is active. One of those is in partnerships with ministry partners. Some of those are really local, and you might know a lot about them or have heard a lot about them, like CES or Jonathan House. Some of them are far away. If you remember Elisa Walt, who was here last year and got sent out to go serve in Bosnia, for example. But there's lots of others, too. So City Church is active in God's mission by making formal partnerships with ministries, both near and far. City Church has also been renewed, in a renewed way, active in outreach through hospitality. I think about our fabulous block parties this last summer and how many neighbors we had come and experience that City Church was not such a scary place, maybe kind of safe, we'll see. And even more important than like the facility being safe, like the people weren't so weird, like maybe I could come here, you know? That was sort of like low goal, like low threshold goal, but we did it, okay? Like that's outreach right there. That's building a bridge and opening a door to communicate to people, hey, God is here for you. And we're here for you too. So we've been involved through partnerships, we've been involved through hospitality, also through a lot of our children's ministry events, also would qualify as part of this local outreach, inviting families to come in and experience the church and the community as a safe place, right? But then City Church is also active in outreach through daily service of people like you, and through daily service of our friends who are going to join us. So if I could have Andy and Michelle and Marie and Elliot come join me. I'm excited for you to hear about how they are involved. Yes, would you like to give them a round of applause for their courage and showing up? So each of them are involved in something related to local outreach that is quite different. So it's like a variety pack here. This is like the box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be great, okay? So we're going to start with Marie here. Sorry. She's like, oh, don't do that to me. I saw the cringe. But we're among friends, so it's okay, right? Okay. Marie, I want to just ask you if you can tell us how you and Mark have been involved in local outreach connected to City Church this last year.
We were highly involved in the block party and the outreach of that. We also like babysitting at the parents' night out it was just fun to watch the parents go, ooh, I get a night out. Yeah.
Jonathan House.
Oh, and Jonathan House, that's a big one. Yeah, that's really big.
What have you been doing with Jonathan House?
We have put together a committee or a group of people to service and to support in different ways the family that's moved into our Jonathan House home, which is over on Nicollet Avenue. And there is a family of 4 that lives there, and Mark and I are supporters of that family.
So what does that look like? You show up and
That looks like sometimes cleaning out a house, sometimes, and then starting in November, they moved in, and we had them over to bake cookies at our house. We drove the kids to school for the first few times they went to school. One of the kids needed rides to school every day, and I let Mark do that early morning, and I picked him up. And we got to know, that's really how we got to know him.
yeah, that's great. So you and Mark are empty nesters, we could describe you at this point, and Mark recently came over that milestone of retirement. I mean, big moment in life. Why do you, in this season of your life, give of your time and energy to things like Jonathan House or the block parties?
Well, one thing we did decide on when the church was going through the transition that we went through, we decided that we were going to dig in or leave. And digging in for us meant I like outreach. I that's just my gig, and I have never been able to do much outreach because I've had kids in the house for 30 years. I retired from parenting too.
Yeah. Well, except you didn't actually
sing-
retire. You're still involved with your kids, right? You don't ever.
No, I don't even know their names.
You don't even know their names? Wow. Okay. We'll talk about that later. All right. So, what has been encouraging to you, like as you've engaged with Jonathan House more in the last couple of months? What encourages you as you've kind of dug into that particular opportunity?
I have a really fun example. We were involved in the block parties and stuff, and then we helped. We were cleaning at the Jonathan House between families, and the landlord's son came in, and we got to talking and stuff. And all of a sudden, he stopped. He said, City Church really has done a lot for our neighborhood, and it's like God opened up that curtain and gave us a glimpse of what we're here for.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's a great story about, and I think that's what a lot of local outreach is right? You just are doing things in obedience, like this is the next right thing, and you're hoping it makes an impact, and often you have no idea. It's an act of faith. I believe God's at work. I believe he wants me to join him. Here I go. I have no idea what's happening, and then every now and then he pulls that curtain back. To give you that encouragement. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's pass this to Elliot. We'll head down that way. Elliot.
I sat on the end because I wanted to go last.
What? What's your day job, Elliot?
I am a middle school social studies teacher at Minnetonka Middle School West.
All right. Middle school social studies teacher. And when you're not teaching, what are you doing?
I am chasing small children around my house.
Yes, chasing 3 small children around his house.
If I ever get a break from that, I love having people over and playing games, reading books, not with other people, just myself. But, my hobbies are varied and
Many.
many, yeah.
So when you are at the middle school, do you see that activity as ministry?
Yeah, so, in a public school, I can't explicitly share my faith with students, but there are ways that I can kind of subtly drop hints. At the beginning of the year when I'm introducing myself, I talk about how I used to be a pastor at a small church out in Pennsylvania. And then when my wife and I went back to school, I still did part-time youth pastoring when we were in Illinois. But really it's, I think, if I want to be like Christ, I have to show what Christ is like to other people. And so being someone who is consistent and steady, and someone who actually cares about what these students are going through. If you were here last week, you heard that our students, K through beyond 12, are hurting, and it's a tough world to live in. And being someone who is going to try and help them make sense of the world in a way that, even though it's not explicitly Christ-centered, anything I tell them is going to be centered on my worldview. And I really have to often couch it in terms of like, well, this is just my opinion, but I really think that, maybe we should X, Y, Z. Because I teach global studies, that's the name of the class. And so we're talking about, global issues around the world. And so getting kids to kind of see what the world is like can often be a little daunting and a little, for me at least, a little depressing, because the world is a dark place. I think Amy said in her sermon, like, if you're the light of the world, why is it so dark here? Yeah. But through that, trying to help students make sense of the world, and then if they a lot of my students just kind of listen to what we say, they learn the stuff, and then they kind of move on to the next thing. But sometimes students really sit and ponder and struggle with some of the things that we go over. And in those moments when I can tell that they're curious and they want to know more, that's an opportunity to kind of hopefully shed a little more light on the things that they're struggling with, and why, maybe it isn't supposed to be that way. I hope that makes sense. That felt a little
absolutely
wandering of an answer.
Absolutely. Is there anything in particular that encourages you in your work when you feel, you're kind of in a tricky spot, right? Where you want to reflect who Jesus is, but you also have to respect the context that you're in and the professional requirements. Like, what gives you encouragement or hope as you watch these kids wrestle? And
I think when I see changes, so my 6th-hour class drives me absolutely crazy. I have a lot of, I call them boisterous personalities. And, there are kids who really aren't interested in kind of figuring out they're not ready to figure out what a functioning, healthy person is in their own life. But every once in a while I see a kid who, there was one kid before winter break who, at the beginning of the year, he had kind of been one of those kids. He would just like blurt out random things and just be disruptive. And, I've found that a lot of my students have a tendency, if they have a friend who sits in the complete opposite corner of the room while I'm talking, they'll be like, trying to have a conversation. It's like, hello. But when we got towards winter break, he really started to like buckle down and focus and make better choices. And, obviously that I had a small part in that because I was trying to direct him to those better choices. But as those changes happen, I think it's my job to encourage. And for the kids who keep making the wrong decisions, having opportunities for restoring the relationship between teacher and student, and kind of show what grace is. And so, like I said, trying to be a model of who Christ is and not write kids off, because there are some kids that I just, the Lord has put them in my life to teach me patience. But showing them that, like, just because you make this bad decision 1, 2, 3, 100 times doesn't mean that all hope is lost. And so trying to be that kind of person that will still be a positive presence, and a lot of them probably won't figure it out this year. They might get through 9th, 10th, 11th grade, still kind of be doing these same things, but hopefully planting seeds in their mind and their soul that will eventually bear some fruit.
thanks, Elliot. You can pass it down to Michelle. I love what Elliot's saying about making his identity clear in the ways that he can, right? I'm somebody who is a Christian, and I've been involved in this pastor thing, which they might have who knows what association with, right? But then trying to exhibit through his character and his care over time to demonstrate what Jesus is like through his life. It's a beautiful thing and something a lot of us can do in our workplaces regardless of where you work, right? It's an accessible thing. Thanks for sharing that. Michelle. Hi. You first engaged with City Church through Alpha. And the Alpha program, if you aren't familiar with it, is one that lets people come and ask safe questions about God around a dinner table and around some video discussion stuff. And I'm just wondering if you can draw your mind back there. And what was it about that experience that helped you think that City Church was a safe enough place to stick around? Why didn't you just go home when the program was done? That's
Right. Which some people did, but like I had actually been like coming to City Church for maybe a year
Okay.
before Alpha, and I was coming to City Church but probably not worshiping at City Church.
Okay.
And so the Alpha opportunity came up, and I can still see the postcard. It was something on the front like, what's the deal? Or like it was a question for like, what is this whole thing about? And I thought, okay, sort of like Marie, like either I'm going to be in or I'm not. And so I need to kind of double down on this. So I came to Alpha, and the thing that struck me was that it was like, bring your ugly questions. Like, whatever is heavy on your heart, whatever has been bothering you for 40 years and not making sense about God or faith or Jesus or the Bible, bring it. And like Amy said today, bring it. Like, let's have the conversation. And it wasn't sage on the stage telling you this is the answer. It was guide on the side of like, well, let's explore this and let's have a community conversation about it. And it was just so welcoming of like whatever half-baked notions I had or like questions that I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, let's dig into that. And other people are nodding their heads. So it was this really safe space to just get whatever was on your heart out and really like internalize faith together as a community, and every single person there was after the same goal. So that was a great experience. And then we had kind of a small group who were like, oh, it's over? And so Amy was like, well, let's do Alpha 2.0. So like we just kept meeting for weeks and weeks because we still felt like there were stones to overturn. And it just, I think, further codified for me that City Church was a place that wherever you are in your faith journey, it's an entire community who's invested in you continuing to explore on that path and has a million supports in place and is going to create the ones that aren't there to help you along that journey. So that's, definitely a reason why I've, continued to be involved in City Church. And as there's more and more community opportunities, I think me and my family have been engaging in that more, and it's been a complete blessing.
Yeah, thanks. I love how you tied that together with Amy's sermon. It's like, again, the Alpha program is the people of God embodying what God is like. Like, God's not afraid of your questions, and so we aren't either, right? It's tying those parts together. Really great. Thank you. So you also live really close to the church. Like, I often see you walking as I'm driving into church. I go, oh, there's Michelle walking down the street.
But not today.
Down the hill. I actually thought this morning, I was like, I wonder if Michelle drove today. It was pretty cold. So in more recent time from the Alpha experience, you've taken some courageous steps to try to, like, be a presence to your neighbors. Can you tell us what you tried and how it went?
I mean, I grew up in a faith community, I'm going to use that lightly, but like where like your relationship with God and your spirituality was very personal. Like we
Private.
would sing under our breath and like, you just having a conversation with anybody about faith like blows my mind. And I think it was maybe 2 years ago, we did a segment in the small groups called like Meet Your Neighbor or Love Thy Neighbor. Yep. And it was like the doldrums of winter. And I was like, I don't know what movie. I'm like, let's throw a block party because this winter is never ending. And like, we know our neighbors, but not all of them. So like the boys helped me create a flyer when we handed it around to like every single house in the neighborhood. And it was like, we're having this open house between this time and that time. Drop in if you want. And I really wasn't thinking about it like as a Christian outreach or event. None of that. It was just more like, let's just create a nice place for our community.
You didn't preach a sermon in the middle of it?
I did not preach a sermon or say a prayer. I didn't do any of those things. And I mean, nearly everyone in our neighborhood showed up. And it was funny because everybody was like, wow, this is awesome. Why'd you do this? And I was like, well, I go to City Church and we had this. And like all of a sudden it was like, oh, here's this little opening to talk about faith or Christianity or City Church, and like so many people, everybody's response was, "You go to church?" And it's funny because even in the years since, like that little opening has created so many conversations with neighbors about faith in Christ in ways that like would never have happened before.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you took a step to, in a different way, publicly identify yourself as a person of faith, like Elliot does in the introduction to his classes, right? But that opens the door, and people get to ask that why, and then you're like, well, let me tell you about it. I love it.
And some neighbors like came to our summer party
Yeah,
then,
awesome.
and or have popped in. So it's just like led to all kinds of other things that would not have happened
great.
otherwise.
So as somebody who lives in the immediate environs of the church, what advice do you have to the folks at City Church about what it looks like to be a good neighbor? As you've gotten to know your immediate neighbors more, like, do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I mean, like the lazy answer was like, walk the talk, which I think is important. But I've been thinking all week about something JT said last week about, raise your eyebrows. You said something like, everybody wants to feel like they belong or everybody's worried about belonging. And I've been thinking about that all week. And I realized, like, I think the thing to do is to be brave and open the door for conversations or reach out to the person who maybe you don't know and invite them in by modeling, something that's Christ-like, and then just creating community around that. But it takes bravery, but everybody wants to belong. And it's like, once you realize that, taking that brave step is less scary, I think. So that would be the advice, is just to be brave about it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Michelle. That segues really well to Andy. Andy is, as you know, a professor at as I assume everybody knows, he's a professor at a Christian university at Bethel. But I also have loved to see how Andy's really intentional in his desire, outside of his job, outside of his paid Christian work, to be somebody who's looking to do what, like Michelle just said, just building those little bridges to open those doors for people in our immediate community, because he's also a very near neighbor, physically speaking, to the church, to build bridges with folks. So can you tell us a little bit about how you have gone about trying to kind of be that bridge for folks in our community?
Yeah, I mean, I am about, like, even on the introvert extrovert like scale, when you do those little self-survey things, and on the one hand, like, I read books and write all the time, and that's sort of what I'm supposed to be doing. And then on the other hand, I really believe in the social. And so I think I learned that from my parents. I grew up really social. But I think, like, Amy and I, when we were first married, we had got married together, but we came from roommates, and so like I did not complete her in the sense of, like, I did not have the social interaction that she was used to. So it was like, we needed to get together with other people, like, to get some of her
You're saying
words
you weren't
out.
enough somehow.
Yeah, and I'm sort of throwing her under the bus a little bit. Now I'm going to throw my kids. Just like that, when the kids were little, I was like, I've just got to get out every day. I've got to get out because they're driving me crazy. Like, playing
Elliot's
with
nodding next to you. Just
the little figures, and like the little voices and little figures. That's what they really wanted to do. And it's like, we got to go to the playground because my mental health needs that. So I think, let's get together with people. And I think we moved a bunch too. I don't know how many homes, 8 different places we've lived or something. So where I felt like we had to initiate, like, and just like we've got to, like, just invite a bunch of people, go to any possible invitations we have, like, to just get to know people. And I think with kids too, we sort of felt like with kids in this age of the screen, which our kids really experience, who are 3 teenagers, like, we've just got to, like, encourage any kind of friendship building activity among kids that is not on screens. So scouts and music and drama and sports and whatever, sledding and ice skating. So I think that sort of, I really believe in that social thing. We just need it. So I think that really has oriented my life, just kind of on one level to, like, go do stuff. I'm actually, I mean, you said you're stopping parenting. I just told somebody that I'm stopping parenting here too because I've got a 14-year-old and they don't need me to do anything anymore. Like, so I'm kind of, I'm sort of like onto like, I'm not quite an empty nester, but like sort of.
Almost
like we're-
there, almost
So
there.
anyway,
Yep.
it's a different thing that I'm like, hey, I like gotta fill my time with relationships and friendships and go and do stuff. I'm slightly in that phase
You're
here.
getting there, yeah. So you've been involved in like adult sports leagues just for
Yeah.
your own well-being, right?
Yep,
But when
yep.
you're there, what does it look like to be a witness to Jesus in that space? You're there for your own mental health because this is good for you.
Yeah.
But I know enough to know you've been intentional too. When you're
Yeah.
there, you're like looking for, hey, who is it who needs a sense
Yeah.
of belonging, right? Who is it who maybe I could have an open conversation, open that door with? What does that look like?
Yeah, and I'm in a book club, and I play soccer Monday nights, and I run Wednesday mornings, and then I play basketball at Thursday at lunch. So I have 3 like group sports things. I sometimes think about like, have you ever heard of that phrase "don't drink alone"? Like about alcohol, like it's okay to like have a wine with a big party once a week or whatever when you have a big celebration, or like if it's tied to a social interaction. And I sometimes think like at physical exercise is a little bit like that, where if it's tied to things that are like social, there's a little less likelihood that you're gonna get obsessed with your own body. Or something like, I don't know, I don't mean to say exactly, but like there's an extreme on things that even watching TV or movies, I think, like if you're watching with other people, there's a little social, but like to just binge yourself. I don't know. All right. So anyway, with activities, yeah, I have good conversations with people. I think I'm a convinced Christian that the way to live is, as a Christian, will lead to a happier life, a healthier life, a more wise life. So just in normal conversations about, we had one of the guys who we're running with, his daughter, who's a friend of Jake's, had cancer this year. We have another friend I run with, like his mom passed away, so we've talked about that. Another one, had an injury, and I visited him in the hospital. And so we talk about, 2 of them had kind of terrible job situations, which we talked through. A soccer guy, his daughter was having trouble finding a job. So like we care, but then the other guys pitch in and are positive too, and add their, positive encouragement to these folks too. I think Christianity just comes up, and I say things like, well, I don't know, as a Christian, or, I think I do this. So anyway, yeah, I guess it's just sort of part of asking people how they're doing, and then hearing their answers and responding.
Yeah, sounds really organic.
Yeah.
But that courage to be where you are, doing the
Yeah.
thing that you already do because it's good for you, but do it with an eye toward like connecting with people, being relational, and following the door that Jesus opens in that space. Do you find that most people, like, that you've been able to engage with conversations about it and even mention, like, hey, I think this might be the good way to live. This is what I do. Like, have they been open to that in the most part, or do you get people that go, and I never want to talk to you again, and like running the other way?
I feel like people are more open than I've and sympathetic than I thought. I think a number of years ago, I heard one of the people I was coaching, their kid, who was a difficult kid to coach actually, and the woman said, every year I vow at my New Year's resolutions to lose weight, save more money, try a church, exercise more, something like that. And she was like, so we do need to visit church. And I sometimes have kept that in mind with people, that it's sort of like something for a lot of people that they're not against. It's like they just haven't got around to it. And so I feel like that helps me to have a perspective that that's where a lot of people are coming from, that they sort of recognize, yeah, even if I'm not totally believing all this stuff, like to go and have my kids learn morals because they're acting pretty bad, behaving pretty bad, my own kids are, that would be good for us. I mean, I feel like that's sort of my perception, that people mostly think it's sort of a good thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, really great tie there to Michelle, too. Like, people want to belong, and a lot of people actually are looking for anchors, and maybe they just haven't gotten around to it. And so those are really good encouragements to give us courage to be in the places where we are, in whatever season of life where we are looking to actively watch for where God's at work. Sometimes you see God at work because somebody says out loud one day something really brave, like, hey, my life isn't working real well, and I don't know what to do. And because you have a relationship with them, you get a chance to have that conversation. Or maybe it's because they see something in you and go, man, Elliot, you are the most patient teacher I've ever met in my whole life. Why? Okay, probably sixth graders aren't asking that regularly, but I can guarantee you that in a few years, some of them will. And they'll probably ask someone else, and Elliot will never get to hear about it, you know? And I love Marie's encouragement that even what we're doing with Jonathan House and that cooperation, it's like, you think it's actually for the people in the house, and here we have the landlord's son, who's the one noticing, hold on a second, that City Church place, they actually care about their neighbors. Those are all good pieces of good news, so I hope you find that encouraging. We're going to move toward conversation groups for just a few minutes. So there are folks in the room who have a piece of paper with discussion questions on them. And so if you can find one of those, we kind of want groups of 5 to 7. And I'm going to put the questions on the screen today too, so you can see there's way more discussion questions than there is room. So it's sort of a choose your own adventure. You could look at the screen and say, I don't want to answer that question. I want to answer this one. And that's okay. So go ahead and find 5 to 7 people to gather with, and we'll have some time for conversation. Thanks, friends. Well done. Excellent.
Why don't we do middle and high school? So, if you're in high school, come up here.
Yeah, that's great. This group has too many people.
Hey, Jake,
Okay,
and
Tamara's
you guys could even grab a chair. You and Torsten and Allie and Lola. Cool. Great. Yeah. Jake. Oh my gosh. All right. There you go.
Did we all on purpose do this? No.
Yeah. Didn't you get my text? No. Wear green. So, what do you guys think? Did anyone have a new thought about what outreach is?
Doesn't always have to be like obviously Christian. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, we're gonna be reading the kids' storybook Bible at my house. Anyone can come. It's like, oh, we're gonna like play with your kids while you guys do whatever you want. Like, it's like subtly implying your Christianity by making an example of yourself.
Yeah, like what Elliot was talking about, where you'd be like, I do feel like, thinking about it in context, like, I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I've already said this, but like in context, like the ministry in the old times when no one knew the gospel was more like literally going around, they went around and proclaimed the good news, literally. And now it's like, living in a Christian culture, it's like, I feel like the need is more like, people have a lot of misconceptions about Christianity, and we need to show that we can be normal people. We are normal people. And also, like, Jesus, there's a huge misconception, I feel like, that Jesus isn't fun, and religion is rules, you know, religion is just intended to make things not fun and not let you have fun. Jesus turned water into wine. Like, he was like the fun.
The party wine.
He didn't turn the wine into water. He was the wine. Like a lot of people think that, you know.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a bar.
I started from this.
Don't.
That's all right.
Like,
I like that.
like stage on the stage. Yeah, like
Yeah, I like that.
I do agree with.
That was fire.
That was a bar. Like I do agree with Dad where he's like saying, Andy, where he's saying like, it's okay to drink with people. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
moderate amounts, and like, it's fine to yeah. Before you yeah.
I took a few pictures of
It's no, but and like watch a movie and like just like be in community and like yeah.
I think of an example.
He's back
When I was a child, I had to take piano lessons, and I hated it. And I, like my teacher, I didn't relate to my teacher. I didn't learn songs that I liked. And I would record myself practicing at a tape recorder. And then I would go downstairs and play it and play video games. And I was bad at piano, like because of that. But then later in life, like when I wanted to learn how to make music, like I was a super student, you know, and I taught myself all this stuff. And it's kind of like, I think of outreach that way a lot. If it's like, hey, you have to take piano, you have to learn songs you don't care about, your teacher smells bad, like, which happened to me. Yeah, but it's like, what if you could give someone a reason to want to know about this Jesus? And I think that would be a million times better.
It's like how to win friends and influence people. Like the person has to get excited about what you're trying to get them to do. They have to see what's in it for them.
Right.
You can't just you're not gonna have good workers. You just like this is what we're doing. You don't get any choice. Like
Make your kids do the dishes. Look,
it could more be like
we're playing house.
only one of you guys gets
They're like, okay.
only one of you guys gets to do the dishes. The first person who puts away the dishes needs to choose the song.
Funny.
Gets to have scissors.
The other one has to sleep outside. With a dog.
The other one is not my kid. One of you gets voted on. Survive.
All right. So, what holds you back from being on outreach in life?
I guess, like, normally I don't recognize the opportunities, so it's just like, I don't have, or I can't, like, see a place to talk about it or whatever, but, like, I don't know. And then also just, like, being nervous, being anxious about what people will think of you.
Yeah, trying to like avoid judgment, but yeah. But also like whenever I like miss the opportunity, I think of it later, and then I'm like, oh no.
Or it's like you're just like really comfortable. Like you don't want to move out of your comfort zone because you found a place where you belong. And it's a little bit of a risk to reach out.
Linear gymnastic,
Oh my gosh.
like that. The way you're telling yourself gets to each other. The one, like, what was it, like, they wouldn't want to go sit with you because they're comfortable with their group.
Comfortable with their clique. It is hard. I mean, I do feel like in a secular world, we are kind of condemned to being uncomfortable at all times with we're constantly, I feel like, in battle against, like, not really in battle, but like we're constantly in opposition to what most people believe. And I feel like it's hard to like, so it's tough out there.
A good thing,
Yourself, unless you're
a good thing I heard a speaker say is he was like, people ask me like, how do you get over your fear to speak on stage? And he was like, I don't. I do it afraid. And I think like when you have a strong enough motivation for something, you're willing to like be uncomfortable for that thing. You know what I mean? It's like if you're saving money for a car, right? Like you will find yourself being like, oh, I want to buy something, but I'm saving for a car. And I think like when that's where it comes back to like understanding the love of God, to where it's like, because if I just walk around like, oh, I have to do outreach, or God's gonna be mad, that's not a very like good motivation. But when it's like, oh man, God's love for me is so great that I want other people to know about it too.
yes, it's
And
a reaction to God.
it,
Well, it's not in reaction to God being like, oh, you're gonna go to hell.
right.
It's in response. It's because of him loving us first that we're able to.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at George. He was
Anyway.
doing this with his legs, and I went.
I was? You were the one like, hear me.
But even to what you guys are saying about like you don't want people to hate you or judge you or whatever, I think that's a valid thing because we're created to desire relationship. And like, so I think it's easy to like condemn yourself of like, oh, why do I care so much about what people think? And I think there's a healthy level of that, caring what people think. But I also think that's why what I found in my life is like when you create curiosity, people want and then they want to know, they're not gonna hate you. If anything, they'll be like, oh, I don't believe that, but good for you. And some people might hate you, and that's okay. And we shouldn't like care so much about that, but I do think you'd find, kind of like Andy was saying, a lot of people actually would be either like, wow, oh, you believe in Jesus? Like, I want to know more. Or just be like, well, I don't like that, but that's fine. And then it's like, as a Christian, I can be like, hey, okay, like, I don't hate you. Because people think, like, if you're a Christian, they're not, that you're going to, like, hate them. But it's like, okay, cool. Like, I still can be your friend. I'm just not going to smoke weed with you.
Yeah. It's really hard knowing, like, well, for me at least, being able to at least, I guess, knowing when to speak up about something like, hey, let's not talk about that. I feel like I've always struggled with this, but like, whenever people are, I don't know, like joking about something that's like, well, I shouldn't joke about that and stuff, and it's like, sometimes I don't want to be annoying and like seem like, yeah, but I also feel like you need to have a little bit of a spine, and like people will end up respecting you more. I don't know.
What is an example? Like a concrete example.
People oftentimes are like, "I'm gonna kill myself, kill your say stuff like that." And it's like, yeah, and it's like, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like really terrible, and it's like we should normalize it, but not like that. Like normalize like the fact that
Normalize
the fact that people
struggling.
like commit suicide, like are depressed. There's a lot. It's a lot more common than. So I don't know.
Should I?
4 minutes, so.
Yeah. Should I or should I do what we did last week and tell people to pray?
I think it'd be good to ask people to name aloud somebody or
Sure.
whatever you want to talk about.
Do you want me to do it or do you want to do
I
it?
took my microphone off because
Okay. Yes.
I had this girl at a party tell me that she's
Party?
Like, okay, not like a party, like a Halloween thing. And she's like, how do Halloween people
No.
And then just imagine like if you had decided to leave from that party early, and then she would have said,
Because it's like right out of one school building, and it's like I don't want to lose those friends. When it's like if you totally that's how they get so toxic. It's like you can't.
Check. Hey everyone. I'm so glad you're having great conversation. I want to tell you we have about 3 minutes, so you may not get to all these, but here are some prayer prompts. So in your group, you can either keep talking or transition to praying. And you can take a picture of these and keep praying them. And in 3 minutes, I'll just say closing prayer, and you'll be formally dismissed, but you can talk until someone kicks you out. Go.
Anyway, just yeah. It's like that. I do feel like that's how the cliques get toxic because it's like you don't want to speak up and then be like, and then your friends leave you, and you know, and then you have no friends. They're your only friends. So anyway, it's hard. But I feel like I'm lonely for speaking up and doing what's right, and I'm only gonna be rewarded by God.
Matthew 5. Okay, this is one other thing I want to say. I think when people think of doing outreach, they think you have to add something into your schedule, and it's like, oh, I'm so busy. And what I would say is like, wherever you are already, if you're on a team, if you work at McDonald's, if you, if you're in drama, no, for real. Like, and then also, like, what do you like doing and what are you passionate about? Like Andy said, it's like he likes playing soccer. So it's like, you don't have to feel guilty about that. Like, God may have given you that like so that you could use it as a way to spread his love. So anyways, do you guys feel like there's something that you could be like change your mentality around in that way? Like some of you already do.
That totally helps. The things that I'm already doing. Because I always am like, oh, I should do more. I should invite people or whatever. And then like during school, I'm like panicking, getting stuff done, and I never talk to people because I'm like involved in too many other things or whatever. But it's like maybe I could slow down there and see that God is putting people, even just like in school.
And I think you guys also can think like, oh, well, I have to talk about God. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And like, maybe, like, I almost would picture it as like, there's a common, I'm thinking this out loud, but a common like rule of thumb that people call 80-20. So like in business, 80% of your revenue could come from 20% of your clients. Or as a speaker, 80% of your message is the same, 20% shifts with the audience. And when I think of outreach, I think of like at least 80% is just being somewhere in the way you are. And maybe 20% maybe would involve like talking about God. But it's like, hey, on my swim team, maybe being outreach minded looks like actually caring about some of your teammates, being like, hey, how are you doing? And you actually wonder, like I do climbing lessons with this guy, and so I'm trying to like get to know him more. And that's the majority of my outreach is just like showing up and being curious about him. And then like maybe God will, there have been some God times. So anyone have an idea? I'm supposed to close our time. Let me close our time and then you can say your idea. Sorry. Check. Okay. I'm just gonna pray so that you can relieve the childcare people, but keep thinking, praying, talking about this. God, thank you for this time to get together. Thank you for the chance to hear from people. I pray your Holy Spirit would inspire within us new ideas, new actions that we can implement in our daily lives. And I pray that we can know you more and draw others to know you as well. Pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Wait, we should get a foot.
Okay. How we did that.
Oh my gosh, you guys. I feel like we should continue this combo at velocity. You went green.
iPhone apps. It's Donkey Kong on the iPhone apps. It's Donkey Kong on the iPhone apps. Oh, okay, guys. Oh, I cannot believe I get to see myself. Oh my gosh. This is so cool. So I'm going to put down Bali. And so... Wait, more? So I'm going to put down Bali. Oh, no way. Dude, this is insane. Oh my gosh. This is so cool. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. I do not believe that actually happened. So now I am going to put down Bali. He is my best friend. And now I get to actually put him down on the floor. Hey.